Now we can begin reading through the Torah portion, but I have a very interesting interpretation that Marcus Lehmann, who was a translator, he was a writer of Jewish novels for young people in late 19th century Germany. He also wrote a nice commentary Pirkei Avot that we have in the Adams Street Synagogue. He edited a paper. He edited a youth paper, the Israelite, for Orthodox Jews in Germany. Very interesting. Those who accuse him of plagiarism don't understand that back in the late 19th century, plagiarism was considered a form of flattery. So he lifts liberally from various writers, but he did a lot of historical research, and if you read his books, especially the ones about medieval and early modern Jews in Europe, they're extremely accurate. I actually know a lot about European and medieval history, not from school, but from his books. Marcus Lehmann quoted in the name of his great-great-great-grandfather, the person who was the preceptor of all the Jews in Germany in the 16th century, Rabbi Lehmann of Rosh Hashanah, which he wrote a 2-volume biography of him. It's very interesting. And he tells an answer he gave to a problem in this Torah reading that I never heard from anyone else. So, it says as follows: and Avram placed 7 ewe lambs by themselves. Verse 20 and 21. Avimelech said to Avram, what are these 7 ewe lambs you have placed by themselves? And he said, for these 7 ewe lambs, female lambs, you shall take from my hand in order that it be for me a witness that I dug this well. Right? They were fighting over the well, whether Avram dug the well or not. It says, take these lambs, for me they'll be a witness. The simple interpretation is take this gift as a sign that you agree that this is my well and that we're going to be friends. So the Rabbi Yossel asked the question. He says, wait a second. He says, why are these proof the well is mine? It might be an affirmation, a seal, a treaty, a brit, a covenant. Why are these proof that this well is mine? Take them from my hand. It's proof that it's mine. So, there's a story told that the Talmud says that if the early ones are like angels, we are merely like men. And if the era of the rabbis of the Mishnah were like men, we are like donkeys. But not like the donkey of Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair. Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair was one of the Tanaim, one of the early rabbis of the Mishnah. And he had a donkey that was stolen. But the donkey refused to eat from the thieves' food. So, feeling bad for the donkey, they brought it back to Rabbi Pinchas. And they said, well, you can't prove we took it, but if we did, we'd like to know why your donkey wouldn't eat from our perfectly good fodder. So he says, do you guys take the tithes properly? It was in Israel. And though being Jewish thieves, having gone into thieving before they graduated high school, they didn't know the laws of taking the tithes. So they didn't tithe the tithe, the amount you have to take, before you use grain, you have to take off some of it and give it to the Kohen, to the poor person, to the Levi, the different gifts here. So they hadn't tithed it, they hadn't taken Meiser. So Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair's donkey, being owned by a holy person, was itself holy, and wouldn't eat anything that wasn't kosher, essentially. So we say that we're not as spiritually sensitive as even Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair's donkey. So Rabbi Yosselman says as follows. He says, well, this is the answer. Since Avram's sheep were at least as holy as Pinchas ben Yair's donkey, so as long as it was Avram's well and Avram's sheep, they would drink from it. But he says to Avimelech, I'm making you a gift of these sheep. Once I give you these sheep, they're not mine anymore, they're yours, and because the well is mine, they will not drink from it, no matter how thirsty they are. Because they're religious sheep. And therefore you will see that the well is mine. And the idea is that we all take, there's a very deep idea in this, we all take responsibility for the portion of the world apportioned to us. And if we truly live as we should, this influences everything around us, even our animals. And you know what? It's not such a crazy idea. You notice that unpleasant people tend to have unpleasant dogs and vice versa. Right? If your dog was owned by someone who was a horrible person, he's a big, strong dog, and be biting everyone. But because he lives in the Sherman's house, he just licks everyone, right? So, but there's a deep truth to this that we really do, and that's, by the way, one of the connections with Rosh Hashanah. That by living as we should, since the purpose of creation is that we utilize the world in a positive way, in a subtle way, maybe not as obvious as this. But the point of this story in the Talmud is that in a subtle way, we influence the whole world. We make it godly and harmonized, till everything works as it should, by our behavior. So all the more so, one of the commentaries of Serpent's Menorah's donkey is that if a righteous person can influence their donkey, all the more so that if we live righteously, we influence others, not by preaching at them, not by yelling at them, but by example. On Rosh Hashanah, we don't commit to telling people what to do. We commit to accepting God's rulership on ourselves. We commit to us being the best Jews and people we can be. And by taking that personal responsibility, if we live it well, we'll influence others too. And even beyond, perhaps, the human race. But certainly other people.